God has done.
Sing out to every nation, go sing the stories to everyone.
Go out to all creation and tell the wonders our God has done. Sing out to every nation, go sing the stories to everyone.
Go out in peace and justice, walking in God's light. Go out and love as one, proclaim the risen Christ.
Go out to all creation and tell the wonders our God has done. Sing out to every nation, go sing the stories to everyone.
Go out in love and kindness, share the living word. Go out to heal the sick and preach to all the world.
Go out to all creation and tell the wonders our God has done. Sing out to every nation, go sing the stories to everyone. Go out with hope and pardon, forgiving those who stray. Go out and speak the truth, that mercy is God's way. Go out to all creation and tell the wonders our God has done. Sing out to every nation, go sing the stories to everyone. Go out in joy and beauty, peacefully depart. Go out and sing of Christ who dwells within your heart. Go out to all creation and tell the wonders our God has done. Sing out to every nation, go sing the stories to everyone. Go out to all creation and tell the wonders our God has done. Sing out to every nation, go sing the stories to everyone.
Very good night to you and a warm welcome to our Mission Online Hope Alive. And it's a very windy, rainy night. I can hear the wind outside the window. So I hope you're tucked up well and that you'll enjoy the next hour with us. Céad Míle Fáilte. And that song that you heard at the beginning of the programme is the Ian Callanan Go Out theme tune for our Mission Online. And the singers were our very own Listowel folk group. So I'm kind of grinning and joining along with them. Let me tell you a little bit about tonight. The format is we have a guest speaker. That's followed by another piece of transition music. And then we have a questions and answers session. And this is where we need you to submit some questions. Look to the bottom of your screen there. There's a Q&A box and a chat box. And if you have any question at all during the night, please submit it. We would love you to participate. It makes the night a much better night. Our special guest tonight is none other than Aidy Roche. And Aidy needs no introduction. She is the founder and the voluntary CEO of Chernobyl Children International. This all came about after the 1986 Chernobyl nuclear disaster. She has been working tirelessly in this area for the last 40 years. Just to name a few of the things they've done, 107 million euro of aid has gone to Chernobyl and those people in need. About 26,000 children have come to Ireland and been hosted in Ireland for rest, recuperation, and a bit of a holiday over the years. And I'm sure a lot of people listening will have had connections to that. And she has been involved in and dealt with about and funded 4,000 heart surgeries. That's just naming a few of the things that Eddie and her team have been involved with. And she has worked all the time closely with the United Nations. She's a writer and a documentary maker. She has spent the last 40 years campaigning also for environmental issues, for peace, and for social justice. She's from Tipperary. Her parents are from Cork. She's back in Cork again because she married a Cork man. But she has lots of connections to Kerry. She had a holiday house back in West Kerry for over 20 years. So we're delighted to have her tonight because of her close connections to us. Eddie is a highly accomplished woman with a big heart. She's talking to us from her home place in Cork on the theme Welcoming the Stranger. So over to you, Eddie Roche, and a warm welcome to you.
Mary. Well, fáilte the gachéine an seo on this wild, windy and stormy night. My goodness, we're lucky that we're able to do this by Zoom, because if we were doing it in person, I think we probably have had to cancel the night, which would have been terrible. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of the Kerry Diocese mission, because this has been maybe 2 years in the making, and finally we got it together. And this webinar is being beamed out and into all over Kerry, coming from the kingdom, Kerry of the welcomes. And you know, tonight's theme really is Kerry is living as a county, the theme which is welcoming the stranger, because you've been doing that for centuries. You've been doing it for in more recent times. And, you know, I think it's in the DNA of all Kerry people to give a warm welcome. And the title of this year's mission is very special, Hope Alive. And I really think it's perfect for our times, because you know, folks, we need hope more than ever. We need it now. And focusing on welcoming the stranger is so apt for Ireland in the present day, because we have so many refugees coming to our shores, seeking comfort and sanctuary. And they're coming from war zone areas predominantly. And so I'm also conscious that we're just in the aftermath of celebrating the period of Christmas, the birthday of the Prince of Peace himself, who was born a refugee, who was born of refugee parents fleeing from the fear of death and oppression. And the Christ child was born as a result of being given comfort in a stable, in that manger at Christmas time. And, you know, the Christ child who brought us the message of messages, which is hope, love, and peace on earth. And boy, could we do with some peace on earth. And reminding us, I suppose, of the core message of that period on our Christian calendar of Christmas. And we bring that into this new year of 2024 with us, where we have offered hospitality to our family and friends. And, you know, Irish people have never been found wanting for welcoming the passing stranger. And at Christmas time, Christmas Eve, we all lit our candle in our front window for the symbolism of welcoming the stranger. And I know from being in Kerry for many years for Christmas, you not only put it in one window, but you have it in every window in the front of your homes, which is a beautiful symbol and tradition, and long may it continue. And of course, friends, we were welcomed ourselves as a people. We were welcomed as strangers over hundreds of years, from the past right to the present day. Like, we sent our children as a result of oppression, of colonization, hunger, deprivation, and despair. We sent them all over the globe. And of course, in more recent times, it's been for economic reasons. So in a sense, we've been both the giver and the receiver of the philosophy of tonight of welcoming the stranger. Now, the overall theme of tonight's mission, or the overall mission, I should say, is one of my favorites, which is the theme of hope itself. And for the past 45 years of my life, yes, I have worked, as Mary mentioned, in the field of peace, justice, and the environment, and that has been my privilege. But I can honestly tell you that there have been times and long periods of time when I didn't have the hope in my heart, when I didn't have the will to continue. And there were times when I had deep despair myself with the state of the world. But you know, I always got consolation from looking into a little corner of my heart and a call out that says, don't give up. The good Lord calls out, have hope, have courage, and all will be well. Now, my own love of life and my own, I suppose, love and hope for life, these are essential elements to my work, actually, and they're my lifelines, I suppose, and they're rooted in my family history. Like at home in Tipperary, it was my parents who introduced us to the spirit of love in action and to having hope when we were very young, like even helping out our neighbours and friends. We were encouraged to join in. We were encouraged to do something, even though that something would be very small. And I learned really as a small Colleen that really there was a great blessing in that small giving. And I also learned that it was a privilege to be able to reach out and to help another human being. And strangely, to be honest, I was the one that received the greatest blessing of all. And that is the truth. So I think the early introduction to giving and receiving in those formative years shaped the pathway of my life from then until now, because that exposure at a young age to poverty and inequality made a marked impression. Even in our town, where life was good for us and our neighbours, I learned that there was a darker side to life. And when we used to make house visits with my parents to with the Vincent de Paul, or helping to deliver Meals on Wheels, like I looked and I learned very quickly that the life I had wasn't the same for everyone. And I suppose in a way, in looking back on it, I suppose I gained an empathy and a deep sense of the wrong and the impact of injustice and the impact of inequality, and that not all of us were equal. And without anybody kind of preaching anything like, oh, you're so lucky, and you know, people are so unfortunate, and there's such an unfairness in society, I actually really learned more from the example, which showed me that little acts of love and little acts of kindness could actually make a difference. So when I became an adult, all of those learnings from those foundation years, I suppose, brought me in a natural way to get involved in movements for change. And so today, the stranger in our midst, you know, they often come from foreign lands. And who would have thought that we would see more refugees in exodus from war zones all over the world, like more than we have seen even since the end of the Second World War, the exodus after the Second World War, which is 80 years ago. And to me, and I'm sure to you too, it is heartbreaking seeing refugees fleeing from the drums of war, beating in the lands of Syria, of Ukraine, of Gaza, of Sudan and beyond. And yes, we are in a period of unusual dangers, of unusual difficulties. And in a sense, I suppose we are challenged once again to rise up and to respond, to open our doors, to open our homes, and indeed to open our purse strings too, and to help and to do whatever it is that's possible. And I suppose our faith asks us a deep question, and we've answered this, I think, in what we do, but the question of, am I my brother or my sister's keeper? And I think as a people, the resounding yes is the answer to that, because yes, we are our brother and our sister's keeper. And you know, I think, and I believe this, that our compassion for others is the heartbeat of Irish society. And yes, we are living in complex and very challenging times, but I take consolation from knowing that our ancestors faced similar and much worse disasters and tragedies and challenges in their time, and they managed to rise up. They faced them every time with courage, with bravery, and with unity. And you know something, folks, we can build on that. We can draw from that wealth of history because we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors. And when the tragedy happened in Chernobyl, I remember we were actually the first responding country. We were on the front line of humanitarian support, even as far back as 1986, because we had learned in school about the impact of Hiroshima, of Nagasaki, and we knew the theory of what could happen too. And here we were now faced with the reality. And while that disaster is almost 40 years old, the impact of it continues to stalk across the generations. And it's in the land, it's in the water, it's in the air people breathe, and it is locked in the DNA of all human life. And you know something, Chernobyl isn't something from the past, even though it has been consigned to a historic event. Chernobyl was forever and is forever. And the impact of that invisible war that you cannot see, taste, or touch did its insidious violence to every aspect of the cycle of life. And this single shocking nuclear accident, it can never be undone. Its radioactive footprint is embedded in our universe forever, and countless people have the shadow of that legacy in their lives for future generations. Now, I remember when I was working as a volunteer for the campaign for nuclear disarmament during the Cold War period, the day we got a fax message in which changed my life and the lives of many, many people in Ireland. And I can still remember the two lines that said, SOS appeal. For God's sake, help us to get the children out. Now, this appeal came from doctors from Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus, the three affected countries. They told us how the children were being recontaminated through the dust, through the air, through the water, and through, the food chain, and that these children were picking berries and picking mushrooms in their gardens and forests, and these became all contaminated with radioactivity. They said, please give sanctuary to our future, our children, please take our children. So friends, from that moment we got that SOS message until tonight, we have worked ceaselessly to help to alleviate the suffering. And the people of Ireland, the length and breadth of the country, have welcomed the stranger, the children of Chernobyl. Tens of thousands of children airlifted into Ireland every single year. Like there was always a little mini invasion during the summer months and during Christmas time. And I'll tell you, your county of Kerry was never found wanting. You were to the forefront. And all over this country, families welcomed the strangers from a very strange land then called the Soviet Union, a land that none of us had ever been to. And of course, we all had fear. We had concerns and even had prejudice about what would they be like. We don't speak the language. We don't know anything about their religion or even if they have any, or we know nothing of their culture. But you know something? We actually responded from the heart as human beings. And we reached out to these children who were paying the highest price of what happened from the nuclear accident. And we said, yes, we said to them, our sons, our daughters, our brothers, our sisters, our neighbors, our friends, because we are all part of the same human family. And your suffering is also ours, and we will want to help you. Now, how magnificent a response was that? Thousands of Irish families, convents opened their doors, community centres, villages opened their doors and their purse strings and welcomed the strangers in our midst. And these children became part of the fabric of our society, our families, our communities, and the bond of that beautiful word, love, flourished. And you know something, what we had feared, about the difference, that just evaporated because the children melted our hearts with love. And for almost 40 years, I can tell you that the impact that they have had on Irish society and our impact on their societies is embedded in all of us forever, because all sorts of great things flowed out of that welcoming of the stranger. Because we had volunteer teams of nurses, doctors, dentists, teachers, plumbers, carpenters, tilers, housewives, bus drivers, everybody and anybody dedicated themselves to changing the lives of countless children and their families throughout the Chernobyl zone. And yes, we can no longer bring the children for rest and recuperation because of the war. But I want to reassure you that the solid work continues all of these years. And that umbilical cord between Ireland and the Chernobyl areas of Ukraine and Belarus, that umbilical cord will never be cut. And neither COVID or the war has stopped the work. We have terrific teams of people working for us in both countries, working on our hospice programs, giving children dignity in their final weeks and days of life. We have people working on educational programs. We are working on a fantastic body of work on deinstitutionalization, which is a very fancy term that's really saying we're working on the human rights of children who are segregated in state institutions, like absolutely separated from society. And we are working on getting them their rights to become active citizens in their own countries. And this is a huge body of work, and we're making great progress on that. And, throughout the history of the work of our organization, I honestly want to tell you this because I think it's important. We actually have been guided and we have been directed by the stories and the lives of the children themselves. These strangers in our midst became our mentors and our teachers. I swear to God that every single action that we did, every single program that we built has come from the story of a child's life. That is at the heart of everything. I remember, for example, walking into a home for abandoned babies, where we did a lot of work, and walking through dozens and dozens of cot after cot of beautiful little babies. I remember being drawn to one cot in particular, and I looked in and I saw this small baby that had a grotesque tumor on the side of his face. And I was so appalled, actually. I actually jumped back. I couldn't look. And I moved around the rest of the unit, looking everywhere but over there. And yet I felt the one eye boring through my back saying, look at me, save me, I want to live. And I went back finally to that cot and saw this little boy wrapped up in a cloth straitjacket. And would you believe, I decided there and then I would do my utmost to save his life. We were told that there was no hope and that he was going to die. And I just wasn't going to let that happen, or I wasn't going to have it on my conscience. And on Christmas Day, 28 years ago, I brought him to Ireland illegally. Don't tell anybody that. And brought him to Ireland and straight up to Temple Street Hospital, where a miracle happened and they saved his life. But because we'd expected him to die, what was going to happen then? And that was the challenge, because we couldn't, if we sent him back, he would have been put into an institution where he would have died of neglect. So what was the purpose in this little boy coming into my life? Well, the purpose was that we negotiated an adoption agreement for the rights of Chernobyl children to be adopted in Ireland. And this little boy became the test case. And I'm just going to get a little bit closer to the camera just to show you. This is the photograph of that boy that I took on that day. And that is the eye that told me that that boy wanted to live. And here is a picture of him on the other side in Corcagrina on Bailbon, 6 months later after his life-saving surgery. And 4 years after that, my sister and her husband adopted him. And because of that adoption agreement and that story, hundreds of Chernobyl children got adopted in Ireland, and they're Irish citizens, even they're originally from Belarus, which is extraordinary. And another story of guidance. In 1993, I remember walking down a corridor in a hospital after we just made a big delivery of aid. And as always, there was a little patter of tiny little feet coming out behind us. And they were all chattering away because they were, of course, looking for some sweets. They always knew we had little presents and things. And then all of a sudden, one voice shouted something to me, and everybody fell silent. And I remember turning around, trying to find the face with the voice. And I found this one boy who stared at me head on. And I asked the doctor, what did he say? And he said, this boy said, please take me to your country. I will die if you leave me here. Now, these words set me back because I obviously didn't want to believe them, but I knew it was the truth. The doctor proceeded to tell us that he had a condition called Chernobyl heart, where children were affected in the womb and were born with a serious heart condition, many of them having heart attacks and strokes. And the doctor said to me, we have no medicine, we have no equipment. This boy is doomed to die. We are sending him home to die. And in that moment, I remembered other children that I had met and felt paralyzed about not being able to intervene to save their lives. And now this boy was giving me the opportunity to intervene and to break the paralysis and to be brave and courageous and to take the risk. So I brought this one boy plus 3 others with the same heart condition into Ireland to try and save his life. And what I learned from this boy was about that condition, Chernobyl heart, caused by the effects of radiation, particularly in small babies. And as a result of the cry, please take me to your country, I will die if you leave me here, we built something that we thought we never could do, because like most of us at that stage weren't doctors or nurses, and not to mind, we were certainly not surgeons. But we created a cardiac program. And, you know, from that day until now, and, you know, Vitali's life was saved. And that was one of the first miracles that we ever witnessed. And I learned the power of perseverance and also believing in having the vision and in making the effort that miracles can happen. Yes, I do believe in miracles, and I do believe in hope, and I believe hope is transformative. Hope is fantastic. And I'm saying, please, you believe too, you know, and these are just 2 examples. And then we went on to learn that about 6,000 babies were born every year in this very, very small region. Babies were being born with that condition. And this is a condition that you cannot live with, but that you will die with without surgical intervention. So intervention was critical. And in our charity, we learned from that experience and from the power of these surgeries with the babies that it is one heartbeat at a time, one breath by breath, one breath by breath, and our hope and theirs. And sometimes we say, you know, the babies and the children, they put their hopes and their little tiny hearts in our hands, and one by one, we try and make their miracle happen. And, you know, even with the war in Ukraine, and this will probably come up in the discussion later, we were due to send a cardiac mission 2 weeks after the invasion. Did we go ahead or did we pull back? I can tell you this lady's not returning, and neither were our surgeons. And they braved the war front. They went in 2 weeks after the invasion to perform life-saving surgeries on babies and children that they knew would otherwise die without the intervention. We've continued doing the missions for the last 2 years of the war. our surgeons, doctors, nurses, amazing volunteers running the gauntlet, brave and courageous to help these children, because we believe that every life matters. We really believe where there's life, there's hope. And, you know, I think it's appropriate maybe to say at this stage something that we believe in Irish, which is Ar Scá Chéile a Bharan Nadina, that we truly live in the shadow of one another. And that closeness, that intimacy is the same for all of us, because we are connected. We are part of the same web of life. And that's what makes us truly human, full of love for each other. And we astonish ourselves even at times, don't we, at how much we can feel and do for the other to help. Even that stranger, that child in Syria or Gaza or Afghanistan. And thanks be to God, our hearts are big, generous, and capable of so much giving and sharing. And you know, our charity motto is actually offering hope to live. And we got this motto from the first consignment of aid we delivered, and it was small enough, just one truck. And we delivered it to a Russian Orthodox, beautiful little church in the heart of the Chernobyl area, which was filled with people, filled with children waiting for the aid. And the Russian Orthodox priest stood up in the pulpit and he said, "Not only are you helping us to save the lives of our children, most of all, you are offering us hope to live." Oh my God, now that had a resonance for us. We adopted it as our motto because it was like saying to somebody, hang on in there, don't give up. I can help. You're not alone. Be courageous, because God is good and he will take care of us. And I believe that as a race, indeed, that we have been shaped by those who went before us, many who volunteered and still volunteered throughout the globe. And in our history, we know the courage and the strength of many men and women, missionaries, who went out and did all sorts of extraordinary good works, that they have made us the compassionate people we are today. That was their inheritance to us. And I think we inherited a deep sense of justice, of commitment to community, respect for each other, giving us a sense of universal responsibility when we see the suffering of others as our own. And I believe, honestly, that the answer to our compassion often lies in our past, coming from the time of the Gert the Moor, the Great Irish Famine in the mid-1800s, when our population was starved, like, you know, or halved through mass starvation and a policy of mass immigration. And the support and solidarity and love and intervention and the hope came to us from North America, for example. The Choctaw Indian nation collected money, and that went towards buying shipments of grain and corn, which came into Tralee, to Galway, to Belfast, to Dublin, to Waterford and Cork. And all of us here on this webinar tonight, we are the direct descendants of those that got hope for the future, the hope for life from that time. And therefore, when we see that other people are in suffering, that other people are in crisis, we have, it's like an echo or a voice within all of us in our race memory that we can connect right back to that time. And that is just so critical for us. And we haven't lost touch with that spirit. And yes, you know, the church teaches us many things, but there are three virtues that I want to zone in on now: faith, hope, and love. And you know, you really can't have one of those without the other. And these are really pivotal in this kind of work that we're doing. And so we believe, we hope, and we act with love. But, and here's the sting in the tail, love without action hasn't much value. Action without love, just as bad. But this is what I believe, that hope binds us together. binds us all together, just like that great old spiritual, bind us together, Lord, bind us together, bind us with faith, with hope, and with love. And I think that all Irish people feel this connection. And you know something, we are known throughout the world to have a love of life, to have a passion for life. And I love this idea that we can transform that passion for life and for living into our compassion for one another. And, you know, that's what really helps us, I suppose, to ensure that this is the legacy that we give to future generations. And the power of our humanity in Ireland is strong. And I hope that we together will continue this fine tradition. And I wish to encourage us all here tonight and in the following nights of the mission in that spirit of love in action, because together we can save the world by giving that powerful transfusion of hope and of love, be it for a neighbour up the road or a refugee fleeing the fears of war and death. And yes, we should challenge the ugly voices of racism against refugees. Let us speak loud, speak up, and speak out on behalf of those at the receiving end of that hatred and ugliness. And I do recognise that in this present economic climate, it is easy to be despondent and to wonder even if we have enough for our own people. And this is something that's coming up in recent times. Charity begins at home, and indeed it does. But you and I both know that we can still have the capacity to reach beyond ourselves, out of our own communities, and say to others beyond our shores, people that have so little but yet have so much hope and dream of a better life. And I truly believe that in Ireland, we can reach out to those despite our difficulties, maybe even because of our difficulties, because we too as a people have seen hope's candle flicker and fade in the winds of economic and social storms. And sometimes I often say, you know, when we haven't got anything in the bank, you know, that we're cash poor, but we are people rich and generous. And that's an extraordinary thing. And the work of our organization, it's about those two words that I use a lot, love and hope, about triumph over adversity, the restoration of faith and confidence in ourselves, and the power of us ordinary citizens to have the strength and the vision to be able to see a better world, because fundamentally we believe the same thing, that the children of the world are our future, they are our greatest asset, and they are our greatest treasure and investment for life in the future. And let us together tonight be among those who hand down that torch of hope. And this is our little torch here, the candle of hope. And yes, tonight we long for and we speak of hope. And in these difficult days, hope can be hard to hold on to it. It can be hard to believe in it. But tonight, let us be courageous once more. Let us, Lechela, have hope to hope, because I believe it is the very essence of life. It is what we cling on to when we two, together or individually, are trying to find our way forward. And I honestly believe that hope is the most enabling gift of all. And it was the French writer Victor Hugo that said, "The word that God has written on the brow of every man and woman is hope." And I believe that. And you know, nights like tonight, this mission of hope, may it act as an inspiration to me, to you, and everybody in the county of Kerry, Ireland, and beyond. Because nights like tonight restore our faith and our hope, And we say to those who feel abandoned, you are not forgotten. You are not irrelevant. You are not peripheral. And we together will do our absolute utmost to care and to protect you. For we believe that there is nothing more precious in life than life itself, that beautiful thing of life. And we need to say to one another once more, you're not alone. Because goodness will overcome evil. It will. Joy will replace sadness. And hope will conquer despair. Because hope is alive. Love is all. And love is alive. And together we stand up, we speak out, and we give witness on this front line of humanity. And tonight we take the opportunity in this mission to pause, to reflect, and to realize that this earth is, after all, our common and only home, this beautiful, unique, magnificent, fragile grain of life in the depths of a spinning universe. But now, in a nuclear age, a time of grave mortal danger, our very existence on the cusp, this planet has become so extraordinarily fragile in the hands of man. But in this mission period, a period of renewal, we can start again. And while we await the awakening of the earth on Lála Bríde, the first day of spring, on Bridget's Day, on the 1st of February, we too will come alive. We will start anew, start afresh, with new hope in our hearts and our minds that together we can rediscover, we can renew, we can rededicate, recommit, repledge together. And as we say in Irish, ní neart go chur le chéile, because there is no strength without unity, without being together. And with this light, with this candle, let the light flash around this country and the world, and especially let it fly to the lands and peoples of Ukraine, of Syria, of Gaza and beyond. And we say to them, look, this flame is not quenched. The beacon is still alight. Gather near, gather strength from its light. Let its light, the warmth, the comfort, this guiding light shine out from us tonight and say, light will overcome the darkness. Hope and love will conquer death, war, fear, and destruction, because the light is ours. Together, we can increase its power, its range, its brightness, its glow, its luminosity, because together we say, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Gorv mila mila mahagav. Thank you.
Adi Roche, thank you so much. You are absolutely inspirational, and for motivating so many people. We really say thank you to you. Now, while people send in a few questions, we're going to listen to Leonard Cohen's anthem, sung here by Paddy McElligott, accompanied by Linda Lynch. So that gives people a chance to send us in a few questions. Adi is staying with us to answer your questions. But in the meantime, let's just take a minute or two to listen to this song.
The birds they sang at the break of day. Start again, I heard them say. Don't dwell on what has passed away. or what is yet to be. The wars, they will be fought again. The holy dove, she will be caught again. Bought and sold and bought again. The dove is never free. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. We asked for signs, the signs were sent. The birth betrayed, the marriage spent. Yeah, the widowhood of every government, signs for all to see. I can't run no more with that lawless crowd, while the killers in high places say their prayers out loud. But they've summoned up a thundercloud. They're going to hear from me. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. You can add up the parts, but you won't have the sum. You can strike up the march, there is no drum. Every heart to love will come, but like a refugee. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in.
Frances, have you got questions for
Maybe
Aidy?
I have a lot of questions for Aidy. So firstly,
And
Aidy, can we just say thank you very much? Aidy, are you back with us? Aidy, thank you very much. People are just inspired, encouraged, just a real sense of hope and a sense of life that you've brought back to people. So really, míle buchas as ach sin. But really great questions coming in. And if I can put them into two bundles, one is the question of how do we best support those who have arrived into our own country? And then how do we best support those who are in need abroad?
Okay, I mean, they're very good questions and very pertinent. You know, every time we put on the news at the moment, you know, we're talking about how are we going to deal with the current refugee situation in Ireland. And I suppose it's a nice thing to start with by saying we've already welcomed 100,000 Ukrainian refugees, and that is something that we can be so proud of. And I suppose it's to encourage our politicians really, who will be Eknov Aaron Doris very soon, you know, when they will be asking us for their votes for local councils, and also national elections will be coming up at some stage, and that we continuously write to our politicians to say that we need to be able to keep our doors open, that we need to be able to give that comfort and succor to all who need it, and not to lose sight of our own history. And I suppose the best thing that people can do particularly for Gaza, for example, or for Syria, would be to support organizations like Trócaire, for example, who are doing extraordinary work on the ground, and other organizations like UNICEF are working there too. So I suppose it's with our purse strings, we can help for, for in the immediacy, and on a policy level, we should be encouraging our politicians to make sure that we are ready for when refugees come to Ireland, that we are ready to be able to offer them a warm place to live, and to also to give them dignity, because they've come from traumatized situations. So many of them are suffering from that terrible condition, PTSD.
Yes.
And the last thing they need is to be not felt welcome. So it's to make sure that we are ready at a governmental, at a policy level as well.
So it's to use our voice, you're saying, as well as our purse strings.
Yes, absolutely, to use our voice, letters to the editor, local radio stations, and like to really try and drown out, some of the ugliness of what has been happening in Ireland, because somehow they seem to have overwhelmed all of the goodness, all of the joy and the generosity that we have. So, when I mentioned a few times the stand up and the stand out, maybe our time has come to give that other message of love, and love in action, by being supportive of the people that come to our shores.
Yeah, because that's come in here, the polarity that has begun to set in, and how do we dismiss, or how do we engage with that conversation in a helpful way?
Yeah, I mean that's a difficult one. I suppose, I'm a firm believer in non-confrontation, and I believe, at a philosophical level, in non-violence. And I suppose it's through the power of persuasion, through the power of the larynx, through dialogue, communications, and maybe just by example, that showing that there is another way, that it, so that we could try in a way to dispel and to make the ugliness evaporate, because we maybe convert them to the side of love and love in action and having a hope, because maybe these people are very fearful, and by addressing what the fears and concerns are. And when I was giving the example in the presentation about when we were setting all of this work up many years ago, we had loads of concerns, fears, and prejudice, because you, Francis and Mary too, are old enough to remember the days of the Cold War, when we were terrified of, oh my God, the godless heathens, the Soviets in the Soviet Union. And, we were ready and prepared to destroy them because we didn't know them. And once we got rid of the barriers and the prejudice, we saw that we're all human beings. I think maybe that's what we need to do, is to strip away the prejudice, and just to see these people of different culture, different color, maybe different religious beliefs, and just to see them as human beings, as part of the same family as ourselves. And there, but by the grace of God, go any of us. Like, we went knocking on many doors in desperation over the centuries. So now I think it's a time maybe we dig deep within ourselves and down to the race memory of how we were saved as a people.
And there's a great question here which asks, how do you hold that spirit of hope, and how do you distinguish it from foolish misadventure? So I think there's a desire in people to reach out, but how to do it best, and how to do it wisely. How did you do it as you set up Chernobyl, or as you went that direction in all your year's work?
Well, can I tell you one thing for sure? We knew nothing. And I actually say, in our case, ignorance was bliss. If we had actually known what was needed, what was necessary, I would never have got out of the bed, because I'm not a doctor. I'm not a professional anything. I don't come from any special context. I'm just an ordinary person, like with a good heart. But we would have thought we'd never have the expertise, we'd never get the money that was needed. And sometimes, you have to just trust in the process and to believe in the power of the possible. And can I just say this, Francis? The one thing that there's the power of this larynx, and I might be the center person there on Chernobyl, but behind me are a gazillion foot soldiers, men, women, children, They are the backbone and the lifeblood of the organization. And coming back to Nigyart Gochorla Kayla, that, you know, there's strength in like we, you know, there's no strength unless we are unified. And it's that kind of coming together of communities of people. That is the power to change the world, and to really use that powerful word, believe, 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 you know, and when it's fading and the hope is kind of going out our toes, we have to come up with these key words for ourselves to believe once more, and we pick ourselves up and dust ourselves out, that it can be done. Like in the 70s, you know, during the Cold War, there was a beautiful song that we adopted from America, which goes back to the times of slavery, sung by the slaves, that we shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. And let that day be now, and let it begin with all of us. And that's really another mantra.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I think you've addressed all the questions. There is a great desire to support, and, you know, just in terms of your own organisation, how have you financed it over the last 40 years, and is there support still needed in that regard?
Well, Frances, I love you a long time now after that, because that is a very important question. You know, probably maybe people have a notion that organizations like ours somehow have some mysterious funding somewhere, but the reality is actually we're not state funded. We don't have any millionaires, billionaires like hiding under rocks out there throwing money at us. In fact, from the beginning and right through now, we are funded by little children's Holy Communion money, sometimes confirmation money, birthday money, elderly people coming into the office with, you know, 10 euro, 20 euro, 50 euro. It is ordinary people that has helped to sustain us. But because we don't have an income, Frances, that means that you're kind of always animal, like you're always on the edge, and that actually is exhausting, much more exhausting actually than the problems that we're trying to resolve. But we have great people. I'm thinking in Tralee, we have Marcus McGonagall, the dentist, Mary and George Sugru, you know, Ivor Blenner Hassett, you know, we have the O'Neills out in Ballyhyde. We have wonderful people that are actually fundraising for us at the moment, and to get ready to send out a truck of aid in the spring. In April, and it's really through the generosity of ordinary people. But we do exist by the seat of our pants. And honestly, when I said in the presentation that, you know, while we might be like our in the red in the bank account, like our greatest wealth actually is in the volunteers and in the people who support us. And long may that continue.
Thank you so much. I think we've addressed all the questions, and just to say thanks, Adi. I think you've invited us, each of us, to kind of use our voice, use our hands and feet, and use the little bit of money we have to share with others. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frances Rowland. And again, thank you very much, Adi Roche, for joining us tonight. This is all part of the daily mission schedule. So please join us again in the morning with Mass at 10 o'clock from Cahir Daniel. We're running out of time now, and we've made a commitment to kind of be finished up for 9. So thanks again, Adi. Good night from me, Mary Fagan. Good night from Frances Rowland and the broader Mission team. Join us again on Mission tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, when our special guest is Dr. Michael Conway, speaking on the church in today's world. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Adi. Slán, everybody stay well in this bad storm, and thank you very much from the Diocese of Kerry, which includes Cork and parts of Cork and Kerry. Fánaigí Slán.